You're listening to the Remote Millionaires Podcast, the show for aspiring and established entrepreneurs who want to create and scale six-figure success online without being chained to a job, location, or computer. I'm your host, Tom Gaddis. Let's dive in. Aloha and welcome to the Remote Millionaires Podcast. Bruce, how's it going, man?
Hey, it's doing good. It's doing good. Things are great here in Indiana today. It actually cooled down a little bit, so that's great.
Nice. Yeah, I took the dog for a walk here in Las Vegas, and it was 85 degrees. I couldn't believe it.
I think it is. See, watch this. It's only 79 degrees right now, which is great.
Oh, so nice.
We've been pushing 100, so it feels good.
Yeah, it's been so odd. It's been hot everywhere else, but Vegas has been kind of mild this year. It's been interesting to watch.
I actually was out in Vegas one time when it snowed, and it was interesting to see what the response to everybody out there. So
yeah, it lightly flurried where I live last winter, but nothing that hit the ground. So, hey, well, listen, I'm excited to have you on the podcast. I've been looking forward to this for a while because, you know, you've been a part of our community for some time now, and it's been really great to kind of watch you, come in, absorb, grow, the things you're doing, all that stuff. Such an inspiration for people. So I was really excited to have you on the podcast, and especially since you joined Remote Millionaires and I've been watching what you've been doing in there. I know not all of our listeners might be familiar with you. And if you're not, shame, you should be a part of our Facebook group. It's called
Exactly.
Remote Marketing Agency Owners. You can find it on Facebook. A great group. Just go there and join it. But Bruce, why don't you tell listeners a little bit about you and why you're here on the show?
I'm here on the show because Tom asked me to, and whatever Tom says to do, I've learned that's part of Remote Millionaires and Offline Shark. If they say do it, you just do it. So that's part of it. My background, I come from air traffic control background. I did that for almost 30 years for the federal government. Prior to that, I was actually a pulpit preacher for 9 years. I've got a master's in theology. So I went from talking to people and hoping to see changes to talking to airplanes and expecting to see changes immediately, which is kind of interesting. And now that during that time, I was working for like I said, for the FAA, I was stationed at headquarters for a year doing training, doing actually marketing on our new management program. And when I came back to Indianapolis, one of the guys that was here locally said, hey, he goes, I've got a pool company. I've got a friend that's got a pool company. Small company, needs to get bigger. What can you do to help me? And we put together a TV channel and videos. I think we did about 20 videos for him, and took him from not being found to first page of Google, dominating first page of Google with multiple videos, multiple things. Didn't know anything about Google business profiles, didn't know anything about marketing except videos get results. And so started with that. He called one day and said, stop what you're doing. We can't handle it. I've sold all my sales, fired all my salespeople, and hired a bunch of installers because we've got more jobs now than we know what to do. Became the number one pool dealer in Indiana, which is kind of cool. From that, we started working with a barbecue restaurant, helping them get some people through the doors. And this marketing thing, when I retired from the government, it's like, this is something I enjoy. I took about 4 years off, did some affiliate marketing and some things there. I actually won a free trip to Vegas from an affiliate marketer. And then said, yeah, after that, I like helping local businesses. And so I got back into the basically digital marketing, got involved with the Offline Sharks, had tried a bunch of different programs. And like probably most of us, the shiny object syndrome, try this, try that. And got into Offline Sharks and said, this is everything that we need. We don't need to go anywhere. And then when Remote Millionaire came along, it's like, this helps me focus exactly where I want to go. So.
And you said a lot of things in that little story there that I want to touch on.
Yeah,
Number one,
I dumped a bunch.
yeah. Like one thing that was really interesting to me is you were working a government job, FFA. So probably very good security, very good benefits. I'm assuming good things surrounding that job. But in that job, you learned you were doing some marketing for them, correct? Which was kind of like
Correct.
your little taste of it. So that's interesting to me because I think there's a lot of opportunities for those types of things in a lot of different businesses. And if you're and if you're someone who's like working a job, like maybe look in your company to see, is there something you could do or help out in to maybe help to get a taste. So I think that's really, really interesting. I myself worked for a writer. That's how I got the bug. I got bit by the bug, right? So I was working with this writer. He asked me to look into online marketing for his books, and that was kind of how I got into it. So
that's pretty good. I'm working with an author. In fact, he's been texting me all morning. He's like, "How do I do this? How do I do that?" So he's down in Atlanta, and it's interesting. The writers that have very little background in some of this, but they need to be able to market. So.
I mean, you think you write a book and everybody else does the marketing, but that's not how it works. Like even when you get a book published by a quote big publishing company, you still have to market it and try to sell it and do all those things. So
exactly.
Crazy. Well, the other interesting thing you touch on is that you so you were kind of doing this in the FFA, and then you did this when you retired. So you weren't really looking to leave your job and branch out into your own thing. You kind of just like waited and like, well, look, I'm going to retire. This is something like I want something to do. And so you just kind of started doing this.
Right. Federal government, and it's FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, not the Future Farmers.
What did I say? FFA?
FFA.
My daughter used to be involved with that in Maui. FAA.
FAA. We have mandatory retirement at age 56. And so it's like, that's really young to just sit at home and, watch TV and read books. So it was like, I need something to do. And I took about 4 years and did watch TV and read books, and, did other things. But then it was like, all right, I want to do something, and I can be involved in helping other people. Because it is a government retirement job that has a fairly good retirement plan. I didn't have to make a lot of money, which, some goods and bad things with that. One, I didn't have to charge a lot because I wasn't relying on it for income. The downside is sometimes when you don't charge more, people think your services are not worth as much. So that was an aspect that I had to learn a little bit more about. So,
and I think motivation sometimes too. Sometimes when things are going well, it sometimes can be a little tougher to get motivated. But did you find any specific challenges to like starting this business and getting off the ground? You said your forced retirement was at 56. Right. So I'm guessing you were probably around 60-ish when you kind of
63. Yeah. That was 63, 59, 60 when I started. So the biggest thing was figuring out how to get organized. There's just so much that you can do. You can actually try, there's all the different niches. There's all the different things that you can do. There's foot in the doors. And you just go, there's so much that we can do everywhere. The question is, how do I get started? Where do I get started? How do I go about doing things systemically? But then on top of that, you try and do everything yourself. And I think that was the one thing I got excited about Remote Millionaires with, is the idea of you can teach me how to use VAs, how to get assistance. So I don't have to sit here and work on a website for 12 hours a day and then spend another 4 hours a day trying to market, and then spend another 2 hours a day thinking, well, I'm sure there's some SEO stuff I need to be doing, and then going, well, I needed to sleep somewhere along there, and I missed out on it. So that was a big part of it, is trying to get organized and trying to get some assistance.
Yeah, the assistance is key. It's interesting that you say that, because I was watching this thing on some random channel the other day, and they were talking about Thomas Edison. And the story that goes around entrepreneurial circles, you've probably heard it, about somebody asking him about his 10,000, and he's like, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I just found 10,000 ways not to do the light bulb.
Right.
Like, that's a really famous thing in entrepreneur to talk about perseverance and hard work. And one of the things they point out on the show was that story is not true.
Right.
Edison never said that about the light bulb. And in fact, the way like other people had developed light bulbs already, what he did that was different was he had this, you're going to love this, a team. And he would come up with ideas and then give them to the team to flesh out while he generated more ideas. And so because he was outsourcing, he was able to do a lot and get a lot done and figure out a ton of stuff to really make it work.
Yeah, exactly. I saw a documentary on Harley Davidson, and the same thing, two guys building bicycles, figuring out how to motorize them. Then all of a sudden they thought, we can build a factory. And we can keep coming up with ideas and designs. Let somebody else do the actual, put these things together. So.
Well, when I saw that, I was like, that's such a better story than the 10,000 failures. I thought anyway. But
it is. Yeah.
Well, I want to dive into a little bit kind of about some specifics of your business. So one thing I want to know, because I know some, we have a lot of people in the community that come to this business model later in life. Maybe they've retired, maybe they're looking to do something or supplement their retirement, whatever. And sometimes the thing that kind of trips them up is the technology side of it. Was there anything specifically like that you did to kind of keep up with the technology, or any tips you might give somebody to be like, look, how would they deal with that especially if they feel like maybe they're not like a techie person?
Right. I can't answer that one, Tom. I never felt that way.
So you just figured it out, right?
It's kind of weird. I just
figured it out.
I've been involved with computers since the old trash 80s, the TRS-80 Model 1, the Radio Shack computers. And I just sort of grew with it. If you wanted to do a word processor, you had to program the word processor. And so you bought the books and figured out how to do the programming. So I've been involved with the technology aspect of it quite a while. With the FAA, I was the one that people came to if they said we need something done, and I'd figure out how to do it. So
you kind of had a little bit of that technology in your background.
I had some of that technology background. Yep. The biggest thing is that I find out now with certain areas of WordPress development and website development is there's things that if I need to figure out how to do it, there's YouTube out there, and there's this thing called Google, and you can go and you can watch 3 or 4 videos and step by step, which is what I really like about the themes that y'all put together. A little plug for you here. The themes that you put together a video that says, do this, do this, do this. So you don't have to go out and think, how do I get a map API established from Google? Yeah. You tell you, go here, go here, go here, which really has been beneficial. So
thanks.
I would say if you tell people what to do, follow the instructions. Like I said, if Tom says to do it, just do it that way. It works.
Well, I appreciate that. That's funny. What do you think is the one of the most important skills for someone to develop if they're looking to do this agency model type business, or even to set up a type of remote type agency, I guess?
I'd say the biggest thing is be a self-starter. You just have to discipline yourself to get up and do it.
The D word. No,
the D word.
I don't like the D word.
Don't use that word. It takes self-discipline. It takes figuring it out. You recommended a book here a while back. I'm looking at my shelf. The No BS Time Management for Entrepreneurs.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
So you recommended that one, and I'll be honest with you, I'm halfway through it, and I put it back on the shelf because I didn't have time to finish the BS. It's like, no, there's other things I need to do now. But I gathered things from that. But it's discipline. It's turn off your own social media. It's turn off the television. Turn off, set the books down. Set the iPad down. Turn off, Facebook and YouTube, so you can do the job that needs to be done. Yeah, and that's probably the biggest thing to be a self-starter.
Yeah, man, I agree with you. I've been thinking more and more lately, like looking at people that have had success and people that struggle, and looking back at my own story and my own journey and all that stuff. And it's like I just become more and more convinced that most of the excuses and reasons people make up for why they can't be successful are just that. They're illusions. They're made up. And you just have to decide that this thing you want to do is important. And because it's important, you have to put it in your day every day, no matter what, whether you feel like it or don't feel like it, whether you make progress or don't make progress, whether you succeed or whether you fail. And you just got to keep going. I think that's so critical.
I think let me tag on that. I think the question that you've asked a couple of times is, what's your why? Why are you doing what you're doing? And that's a key. And that really is the motivation for your own self-discipline. Maybe it's paying off credit card bills. Maybe it's paying for the kids' college. Maybe it's going on a trip. Whatever it is, what's the why you're doing that? Is it you just like helping people? Well, then give away your services if that's your why.
Right.
But whatever that is, whatever motivates you to do that, find out what that why is, that bottom line. What's going on inside here that makes you do what you want to do?
And is that how you stay motivated day to day? Like, do you have a clear picture of that why? And you're like,
it is. It is. Yeah. And my wife is still working. She's got another couple of years that she's planning on working. And it's like, part of that is we still want to go on trips. Her job is, it's not minimum wage, but it's not great wage. And so my retirement is there. We live comfortably, but we can live more comfortablier. That's not a good word. We can do better. And so part of it is just want to have the extra resources available to go and do some trips and go see some things and enjoy this great country we live in. Yeah.
Man, I think that's such a great why. And I talked about this in kind of the first episode that I did with Nick, and that is like the remote millionaires. I mean, I know sometimes it can sound kind of spammy, but it's really about lifestyle. It's not so much about the money. And like what you're just talking about there, I think is a great example of that, because you do not have to make $1 million or anywhere even close to that to be able to supplement and take some trips and have some experiences. It's really about the experiences and what having that extra revenue or generating a revenue stream that can fund the thing that you want to do. It's really about that. It's not about like, oh yeah, we're not about like driving around Lamborghinis and all that stuff. It's like, no, like we want to be able to have a good quality of life by generating, and that's why we generate the income so we can support the quality of life we want and do the things we want to do and have that type of independence
and help other people out. I got a request from my grandson who's in college. He says, hey, we're doing this golf outing and they're looking for sponsors. I said, how much do you need? And it's like, here's a check. He goes, well, we don't take checks. I said, well, give me the credit card form. Fill it out. Let me make it, let me take care of that for you so you don't have to worry about it. And the fact that you've got that little bit of extra back in the background, it's there. There's a local organization here called Family Promise that provides low-income housing. I write them a couple checks a month just because every time we sell a website, we write them a check. And it's like the ability to be able to do that kind of thing to help other people out. That's really a whole bunch of the background too.
Yeah, well, that's such a great thing that you just mentioned there, and a really good strategy for a business. I know it was it got in the popular culture by, was it Tom Shoes? Every time you'd buy a pair, they'd send a pair to someone in need. Right. But I know there was a cleaning company on Maui, and they would, whatever you booked, a certain percentage they would send to the Malama Family Recovery House, and every year they'd go and they'd buy Christmas presents, and they didn't brag about doing that. It was just like a little line on their website, right? It just said like a percentage of everything goes to this. But I always thought that was such a great thing to do. And their business really exploded. They moved from Chicago and it just like boom. And I think that was part of it. So that the thing that you mentioned is what you do in your agency is you set a certain percentage of each project aside, and then you donate it to this charity.
Yes. Yep. And it's been beneficial. I mean, it's really been cool, and they're so appreciative when you walk in and hand them a check. They still take checks, but it's really nice to be able to do that, and just being able to share back. It's a big part of being a part of the community. So
yeah, that's great. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, one thing I want to know before we wrap up here is, what words of advice would you give to anybody listening to this episode that's looking to get their agency off the ground or start building some supplemental income? I know you had a lot of good ones already, but
yeah, I would say devour the material and keep devouring the material. The one great thing about Remote Millionaires is you can go back and listen to it. I've been through the sessions, but then I go back through them again and take notes. I fast, listen to them, go back, take notes, listen to it, and then take action. It's one thing to get it up here. It's something else to actually put it into practice. And so get it in there and then put it into practice. And it doesn't have to be perfect. There's a lot of stuff that I put out that is not perfect. And I sent out a mailer for somebody the other day, and I totally screwed it up, had a bad link in it. So because I put myself on the mailing list, I looked at it, checked it, and went, oh, that's the wrong link. Fired out a second mailer to the entire group and said, hey, it was a bad link, my mistake. We actually tripled our open rate from the previous month on that. And we had more people go to the webpage to check out the link that we had bad. So it was kind of interesting. It's like, maybe that's a strategy I should employ in the future.
You probably can't employ it too much, but every once in a while, you got a good one to have in your back pocket.
It worked pretty good. So put it in action. And if it's not perfect, fix it and just go on. Don't let that ruin your day. Just learn it, put it into practice.
That's great. That's great. Well, Bruce, listen, it's been a real pleasure having you on the podcast. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, Bruce and I would appreciate it if you would go to wherever you listen to this podcast and leave us a review. And you can find links to the things we mentioned in the episode at remotemillionaires.com/podcast. Just look for Bruce's episode. You'll find all the links we mentioned here. Bruce, thank you so much for being on the show. Really enjoyed having you. It was a great episode. And if you're listening to this episode and you enjoyed it, tune in next week too. We'll have another episode as well. So until then, stay safe out there, practice aloha, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Remote Millionaires podcast. Hey, if what you've heard today on the Remote Millionaires podcast resonates with you and you want to continue the conversation, then I want to personally invite you to head over to remotemillionaires.com and schedule your free Remote Millionaires business development call. We will analyze your business and show you exactly how to accelerate your results and build a wildly successful business you can run from anywhere. Until next time, Tom Gaddis signing off.